On the night of December 12, 2011, Britney Eldridge was just a fortnight away from welcoming her baby boy, Ezekiel. She had spent months preparing eagerly for motherhood, filled with anticipation and hope. Yet, by the following morning, everything had taken a dark turn. When Britney failed to arrive at work, concern quickly grew. Known for her reliability and never one to vanish without notice, her co-workers tried reaching her, but her calls went straight to voicemail. Her mother, Robin, decided to check on her at home, unaware she was about to walk into a nightmare. The front door was unlocked, the apartment was in disarray, and what Robin discovered inside would alter her life forever. The question lingered. Who could commit such an act against a woman on the cusp of a new chapter? And why does her case remain unresolved after all these years? Born on January 13, 1986, Britney Caroline Eldridge entered the world to Robin and Jeff in Knoxville, Tennessee. She grew up alongside her brother Jeffrey, known for her warm heart and contagious kindness from an early age. Britney had a natural talent for making others feel special, radiating positivity wherever she went. Her family was her greatest treasure, and those close to her described her as a deeply romantic soul, always dreaming of love and meaningful connection. Her brother considered her his best friend, and she possessed an exceptional ability to relate to people from all walks of life. She enjoyed cheerleading and sports, but also embraced her femininity, making her an easygoing, sociable person who could forge friendships effortlessly. Above all, Britney yearned for true love, envisioning herself settling down young and building a future with someone who genuinely cared for her. Her dream seemed to come true at the age of 22 when she met Terry Eldridge, a 39-year-old man. Despite their age gap, they appeared to be a perfect match. Britney's lively and outgoing nature balanced Terry's more reserved and composed demeanor, creating a harmonious connection. Within a few months, they married, embarking on a new life together. However, as time passed, cracks appeared in their union. The primary issue was their differing desires regarding children. Britney had always longed to be a mother, her ultimate dream, while Terry had no interest in having kids. Initially, Britney accepted this, but over time, it became a source of growing frustration. Their demanding work schedules kept them apart. Britney worked at Vanderbilt Mortgage and Finance, while Terry's job as a truck driver involved long, unpredictable hours. Although their marriage lacked overt conflict, their emotional bond gradually weakened. 3 years into their marriage, Britney found herself struggling with the increase in distance. During this difficult period, someone new entered her life. Norman Clark, a co-worker at Vanderbilt Mortgage and Finance. Norman, in his mid-20s, had once aspired to a career in professional basketball, but ended up in the corporate world. Charismatic and easygoing, he and Britney bonded quickly, having started their jobs on the same day. As Norman navigated his new role, Britney often helped him settle in, and their connection grew stronger. Their relationship was initially strictly professional, but over time, their conversations grew more intimate, and a strong connection developed. Britney, feeling unfulfilled in her marriage, found herself increasingly drawn to Norman. Before long, their friendship evolved into something more, something they kept hidden for months. They continued meeting discreetly outside work and communicating privately, knowing that secrets rarely remain concealed forever. In February of 2011, Terry uncovered Britney's affair, shattering his trust and leading to heartbreak. After much pain, they agreed to separate, with Britney moving into an apartment complex on Western Avenue in Knoxville, while Terry began divorce proceedings. Freed from her marriage, Britney and Norman grew more open about their relationship, which deepened further. Life seemed to be heading in a promising new direction until an unexpected revelation surfaced. Britney was pregnant with Norman's child. What she didn't realize was that their casual arrangement, more of a friends-with-benefits situation than a committed partnership, was far more complicated. Norman himself admitted to being involved with at least 15 to 20 women simultaneously, none of whom knew about each other. One of these women had even given birth to his child, meaning Britney was not the only woman carrying his baby. This startling truth was unsettling but perhaps unsurprising, considering their affair had begun without trust or honesty. Despite his questionable conduct, Norman showed a surprising tenderness when Britney told him she was pregnant. Instead of disappointment, he was genuinely thrilled. Although he wasn't the type to settle down with one woman, he took pride in being an involved father. He was already financially supporting his other child and seemed committed to his role as a dad. With Britney's pregnancy, he was prepared to step up again, though not as a lifelong partner. As her pregnancy advanced, Britney finalized her divorce from Terry and continued her relationship with Norman, despite its complications. They attended prenatal appointments together and even chose a name for their baby boy, Ezekiel. For a time, everything seemed to fall into place. Britney was about to become the mother she had always dreamed of. However, just weeks before her due date, everything changed dramatically. Britney was scheduled to give birth in December of 2011, and until then, she had been working at Vanderbilt Mortgage and Finance. But on December 13th, only 2 weeks before her due date, she failed to show up for work. Her unexplained absence immediately raised concerns. Britney was known for her sense of responsibility. If she had planned to take a day off, she would have informed someone, especially given her advanced pregnancy. Her co-workers, concerned by her silence, feared something might have gone wrong. Among her close friends and colleagues was Andrea, who was also aware of Britney's relationship with Norman. Sensing that something was amiss, Andrea approached Norman and suggested he contact Britney's mother, Robin, to check on her. Without delay, Norman called Robin, asking if she had seen or heard from Britney. The question immediately filled Robin with dread, as she sensed that something was seriously wrong. Without hesitation, she drove straight to her daughter's apartment at the Cross Creek complex on Western Avenue. When Robin arrived, an unsettling feeling took hold. As she reached for the door handle, she noticed it was unlocked, and the door swung open easily, sending a shiver down her spine. Inside, she was confronted with a scene of utter chaos. The living room was in disarray. Britney's television had been ripped from the wall and lay shattered on the floor. Her purse was dumped out, and 2 laptops lay scattered nearby. The entire scene radiated violence and disorder. Robin's stomach clenched with fear. She instinctively knew something terrible had happened. Her first action was to call Devitsada Dinitsit. The dispatcher instructed her to check whether Britney was inside the apartment. Hesitant but obedient, Robin moved down the hallway toward the bedroom. That was when she heard it. A faint sound of running water. Her breath caught as she followed the noise, her heart pounding with each step. Reaching the bathroom, she slowly pushed open the door, and what she saw would haunt her forever. Britney was lying motionless in an overflowing bathtub. The sight was too horrific to comprehend. Overcome with shock and grief, Robin fled the apartment, unable to process what she had just witnessed. Moments later, police arrived, secured the scene, and confirmed what Robin had feared. Her daughter was gone. Britney had been strangled, her injuries indicating she had fought desperately for her life. Tragically, the cruel twist of fate was that her unborn baby, Ezekiel, had not survived either. Authorities immediately launched an investigation, removing Britney's body for an autopsy in hopes that forensic evidence would reveal her killer. Meanwhile, her friends and family struggled to grasp the enormity of the tragedy. At first, they considered the possibility of a robbery gone wrong, especially since the apartment complex had recently experienced a series of break-ins. It seemed plausible that Britney had been targeted. However, as investigators delved deeper, doubts arose. If her attacker was a burglar, why had nothing of value been stolen? Her debit card, which still had a note with the pin attached, remained untouched, casting further suspicion on the initial theory. Her valuables, including her laptops, remained inside the apartment, making the police's confusion even greater. Typically, violent home invasions do not end with the victim being killed while leaving all possessions untouched. As investigators examined the scene more closely, it became evident that someone had staged the break-in. It appeared as though the perpetrator wanted it to resemble a robbery, yet the details didn't add up. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting Britney either welcomed her attacker or the intruder knew how to access her home. This realization shifted the police's focus from theft to murder. When officers informed Norman about Britney's death, his reaction was captured on a police dash cam. The moment he heard the news, he broke down, visibly overwhelmed, repeating, "That's my family, that's my baby." His raw emotional response was clear, but authorities didn't dismiss him outright. Given the violent nature of the crime, they strongly suspected Britney had been attacked by someone she knew, someone with a motive. Norman, her former partner and the father of her unborn child, quickly became a primary suspect. The investigation intensified with immediate questioning. Norman answered every inquiry openly, even voluntarily providing his DNA without a lawyer. Then the autopsy results arrived, adding new complexity. It was determined that Britney had been dead for roughly 12 hours before her body was discovered. More significantly, forensic analysis uncovered 2 unidentified male DNA samples on her body. The police initially compared one of these samples to Norman's DNA, expecting a match, but to their surprise, it was not his. This left investigators with more questions than answers. If Norman wasn't responsible, then who was? They turned to Britney's family for insights into her relationship with Norman. Her mother, Robin, explained that Norman had always been affectionate toward Britney. However, tensions had grown since Britney announced her pregnancy. At that time, Norman was struggling financially, drowning in debt, facing pressure from collectors, and even living in his parents' basement. The police couldn't dismiss the possibility that the stress of another child and financial hardship might have pushed him to violence. To determine Norman's involvement, authorities needed to establish his whereabouts on the night of December 12th, the last time Britney was seen alive. Text messages between them showed plans to meet at her apartment that evening to discuss their future and the baby. When questioned, Norman insisted he never made it there, claiming instead to have spent the night with another woman, Leanne Hahn. Leanne confirmed hearing Norman arrive at her home around 10:30 p.m. that night. However, phone records told a different story. Norman's phone had been traced near Britney's apartment that evening, suggesting he was in the vicinity at some point after 9 p.m. After turning off his phone, the suspect's sudden disappearance raised immediate suspicions among investigators. Why would he go off the grid without warning, especially when he had been near Britney's apartment, despite claiming he never visited her at that time? Police also examined Britney's ex-husband, Terry, but quickly eliminated him, as he had been out of town during the crime, and his DNA did not match the unknown samples found at the scene. Although there was no direct physical evidence tying Norman to the murder, authorities believed he was involved. His motive appeared clear. His phone records placed him at the scene, and the lack of forced entry suggested Britney might have let her attacker inside willingly. The presence of two unknown DNA samples complicated the case, yet suspicion remained firmly on Norman. He was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for Britney and another for her unborn child, Ezekiel. Norman pleaded not guilty, but as the trial approached, it became evident that this would be a complex case, involving not just one trial, but 2. The first trial, held in August of 2015, almost 4 years after Britney's death, was intense. Prosecutors argued that Norman was under severe financial stress and saw Britney's pregnancy as an additional burden. They claimed that on December 12th, he followed through on a planned confrontation, attacking Britney in her bathroom and staging the scene to resemble a robbery. The evidence seemed to support this narrative. His phone records contradicted his alibi, and there was no sign of forced entry, implying Britney had willingly allowed him inside. However, a significant complication persisted: the DNA evidence. If Norman was the sole attacker, whose DNA was found on Britney? Prosecutors theorized that Norman might not have acted alone, suggesting the involvement of an accomplice who helped carry out the assault. Yet, without concrete proof, this remained speculation. The trial took an unexpected turn when investigators introduced Britney's diary as key evidence. Her personal writings offered an unfiltered glimpse into her state of mind before her death. The entries expressed feelings of disappointment and loneliness, revealing her perception of Norman's emotional distance and secrecy. She wrote about missing the person he used to be, questioning whether he was seeing someone else, and wishing he cared more about her and the baby. These words highlighted her growing sense of isolation, especially after learning about her pregnancy. While her diary suggested Norman's emotional change, it did not definitively establish a motive for murder. The defense maintained that Britney was the victim of a burglary gone wrong, pointing to the unknown male DNA found on her body. Their strongest argument was the complete absence of Norman's DNA at the crime scene, which cast doubt on his direct involvement. If Norman had physically assaulted Britney, evidence such as traces of his DNA should have been present, especially considering the apparent struggle that took place. Yet, investigators found it unlikely that he could have committed the crime, cleaned himself thoroughly, disposed of all incriminating evidence, staged the scene, and left the apartment without leaving a single forensic clue behind. The defense also challenged the notion that Britney's diary indicated any real threat. While her writings revealed frustration and sadness, they did not prove physical violence or threats. The prosecution's case appeared weak, grasping at straws. After testimonies from Britney's loved ones and other witnesses, the jury deliberated for nearly a full day before reaching a verdict. However, the decision was not the closure her family hoped for. It resulted in a hung jury, with 11 jurors believing Norman was not guilty, and only one remaining unconvinced. Without a unanimous decision, the case remained unresolved, prompting the prosecution to pursue a second trial. For Britney's family, this was another devastating setback after years of seeking justice, only to be left without answers. The second trial in 2017 used the same evidence and proceedings but featured a new defense attorney, Kit Rogers, a former Knox County prosecutor replacing Greg Isaac. This time, the jury deliberated for nearly 5 days before reaching a decision, yet again failing to agree. Interestingly, 11 jurors voted guilty, with only one dissenting, marking a stark contrast to the first trial. Nonetheless, the lack of unanimity led to yet another mistrial. After 2 unsuccessful attempts to convict Norman, the prosecution faced a tough choice. Should they try again, and would it produce a different result? In January of 2018, the Knox County District Attorney General decided against pursuing a third trial. As a result, Norman Clark was released, walking free. Britney's case remains open, but without new evidence, the likelihood of a retrial is slim. Should stronger proof ever surface, Norman could face charges again, but for now, he remains at large. On December 21, 2011, Britney and her unborn son Ezekiel were laid to rest in the same church she had attended since childhood. The day was marked by profound sorrow, as family and friends gathered to bid farewell to a young woman whose greatest dream, becoming a mother, had been cruelly stolen from her. The Knoxville community rallied around Britney's family, offering support, yet no amount of kindness could undo the tragedy they endured. Years have passed, but the wounds remain fresh, and to this day, no one has been held accountable for what happened to Britney and her unborn child. Was Norman truly responsible and simply got away with it? Or is the real perpetrator still out there, their secret buried with time? A family remains in limbo, yearning for justice and closure. Yet, as the years pass, the question persists: will they ever find the answers they seek? Their hope endures despite the relentless passage of time. This ongoing quest for truth highlights how elusive closure can be in unresolved cases. Meanwhile, for those captivated by mysteries from across the globe, there are countless stories waiting to be uncovered. If you are fascinated by true crime tales, consider exploring new narratives from Latin America, where gripping and often overlooked stories unfold. These cases reveal the complex, often dark, realities of the region, offering a fresh perspective on crime and justice. Stay curious and attentive to the stories that challenge our understanding of justice, as each case brings us closer to uncovering hidden truths.